so am I. Midnight strikes, the sky ignites, flesh is crawling, fever bites. Beneath my skin the monster wakes, let the transformation start. Ripping out of human shape, nails to claws and eyes dilate. Blood and fur explode in pain, I'm the alpha in the dark. You hear me screaming, breaking free, the curse inside consumes me whole. The beast unleashed is hungry, and you're about to lose control. Full-moon carnivore, ripping through the iron door. Howling, growling, blood will pour on. Full-moon carnivore, pray you see the dawn once more. Lock your doors and hit the floor, I'm coming for you. Jaws unhinge, my shadow grows, fangs and fury, crimson flows. Every bone a cracking drum, every heartbeat sharp as knives. Hide your loved ones, bolt the gate, no silver bullet seals your fate. I'll hunt you down, I'll hunt you raw, no mortal soul survives. You cannot run, you cannot hide your prey beneath the devil's moon. The curse is loose, the pack's alive, we'll feast on you. Full moon carnivore, tearing up the forest floor, licking blood from every claw. Full moon carnivore, shredding flesh and wanting more. There's no mercy, there's no law, I'm coming for you. Bone and fang and midnight eyes, leather, fur and blood disguise. Rip and tear, the hunt's begun, welcome to oblivion. Flesh remembers ancient pain, torn apart and born again. Rage and hunger never die underneath the bleeding sky. Screaming woods, the shattered light. You crawl, you beg, you pray for flight. I taste your terror, taste your soul, a banquet for the pack. No priest, no spell, no whispered charm can stop my claws, my teeth, my harm. Tonight the night belongs to peace and none of you come back. Your hope is gone, the hunt is long, the forest echoes with your screams. I am the nightmare in your blood, your death is in my dreams. Full-moon carnivore, crashing through your barricade. Ravenous and unafraid. Full-moon carnivore, nothing that you'll see, I swear. Glowing eyes and matted hair, I'm coming for you. Run and run, but there's no dawn. The beast will feed until you're gone. Full-moon carnivore, I'm coming for you. Hush, can you feel them moving? Beneath the stone, beneath the sand, in burial halls the world forgot. They waited ancient, patient, hatching in the rot, uncoiling in the silence, feeding in the dark. They slip between the flesh and bone to hollow out your heart. There's something in the water, there's something in the dust. You breathe them in with every gas, corruption, hunger, lust. A fever in your marrow, riding in your veins. You scratch and scratch but never reach the horror in your brain. You try to spit them out, you scream, you curse, you pray, but the oldest hungers know your shape and burrow anyway. Burrow deep, burrow slow. You'll never know how far they go. Twisting, gnawing, lost in sleep. You are hollow. They burrow deep. They coil behind your eyelids. your tongue tastes ash and blood. There's a hunger you can't satisfy, a thirst you can't explain. You find your skin is riddled with tiny marks of pain. The mirror shows a stranger, your gaze no longer yours. You smile and something ancient spills out between your pores. You try to starve them out, you fight, you bleed, you run, but the oldest parasites return with every rising sun. Burrow deep, burrow slow, you'll never know how far they go. Twisting, gnawing, lost in sleep, you are hollow. They burrow deep. Fight in every shadow, they pulse behind your eyes. You choke on ancient secrets, you swallow all their lies. The fever climbs and shudders, you tremble in your bed. You feel them multiplying and nesting in your head. You stumble through the daylight with voices in your skin, 100 wriggling memories that gnaw you from within. The doctors find no reason, your prayers are only noise. The parasites are older than medicine or voice. You dig your nails into your arms, you tear your clothes away, but underneath the surface the old invaders stay. They slither down your bloodline, they echo in your name. A plague that can't be banished, a hunger without shame. You try to burn them out, you shiver, cough and plead, but the oldest hunger laughs at you, it only wants to feed. Burrow deep, burrow slow, you'll never know how far they go. Twisting, gnawing, lost in sleep, you are hollow. They burrow deep, they're singing in your heartbeat, they're crawling through your shame. You look into your empty eyes and see no one remain. In secret tombs and ruin fields, their ancient eggs still wait. They drift through dust and rivers, silt and slither in through fate. All flesh is only soil, a garden to infest. And when you hear the wriggling song, you'll welcome every guest. You try to warn the living, but words dissolve to screams. For once the parasites take hold, you disappear in dreams. The world will never know your pain, your face is just a mask. The ancient hunger multiplies and no one dares to ask. You try to fight them back, you howl into the void, but all your prayers and screaming are buried and destroyed. Burrow deep, burrow slow, you'll never know how far they go. Twisting, gnawing, lost in sleep, you are hollow. They burrow deep. Close your eyes, let them feed walk ahead? Did the air feel thinner? Or were you already dead?
There's nowhere in the mirror, just a mouthful of forgotten rain. A window looking out on nothing and a hunger with no name. We vanish in the corners where the silence sinks in. There's nowhere in the mirror and no one looking in.
Don't read it, don't rather. It started with a whisper, a flicker on the wall, a shape that didn't make much sense, no meaning there at all. But the angles turned and twisted when the candlelight grew thin, and every line you traced, you found it pulsed beneath your skin. You saw it in your coffee, etched into your dreams. You heard it in the voices that slithered through the seams. Every page and every mirror began to swirl and bend, a secret scratched behind your eyes that never seemed to end. You can't erase it, you can't forget. Once you see the mark, you'll never rest. It's the mark you cannot name. It's the scar behind your eyes. It's the whisper in the static that turns your truth to lies. It's the itch you cannot scratch. It's the knowledge you can't tame. It's the thing that breaks your reason. The mark you cannot name. The symbol haunts your windows, it stains the evening mist, a labyrinth of meaning that coils beneath your wrist. You carve it in your notebooks, you mutter it in sleep. It flickers in your laughter and echoes when you weep. Your friends avert their faces, the words all slip and slide. They fear the thing that's blooming like rot inside your mind. You draw it in the frost, you bleed it on the glass. It's growing in the silence, it's all that you amass. You can't erase it, you can't forget. Once you know the mark, you'll never rest. It's the mark you cannot name. It's the scar behind your eyes. It's the whisper in the static that turns your truth to lies. It's the itch you cannot scratch. It's the knowledge you can't tame. It's the thing that breaks your reason. The mark you cannot name. You found it on an old page in a book that should be burned, a glyph that seemed to crawl and twist no matter where you turned. You felt it in the thunder, in the silence of your bones. You watched it fill the empty space that used to be your own. Each night the symbol beckons, it shivers in your dreams.
I am here. Hello.
Splits your world at the
Hold on, let me put that off. Hello. Welcome to my stream. Today we're doing something a little bit different. We're reacting to not drama, not things, not weird stuff, but a video about depictions of hell. So join me on this dark ride as we get to look into the different visions, or the strangest visions of hell. Yeah. So let's just get started. All right. There we go. All right. So it begins. Hopefully I have the sound up. Let's turn up the sound. That way you can hear it and all that.
Picture this. Imagine that everything at this very instant were to go dark. You are no longer allowed to hear or see or think or even be. And then
Alright.
suddenly, in the next second, you wake up to find yourself in a place that you cannot understand. This place is cold and open and empty. Its sky is red and green and yellow and everything. Its landscape is filled with bones the size of mountains, and above you are a bunch of floating black diamonds with GPS coordinates labeled onto them. Then you come to realize that a man is now standing in front of you. This man appears to be wearing a top hat, a Rolex, a sake backpack, and is holding onto an iPhone. He then goes on to tell you that what humans often call him is a Grim Reaper, which leaves you to ask one single and simple question. Where the hell am I?
That's right. So this is what type of video it's gonna be. I like this because I want to make my channel more of a writing channel, more of a creation channel, and kind of a hub for artists and stuff like that to come. Because honestly, there's something very. I feel like there needs to be more horror artists out there, and there's not enough to cultivate such an audience. So this is one way I'm doing it. This is a video by a person named Lecks. It's Ahlecks. And you should check him out on YouTube. He has some pretty interesting videos. But I figured we'd watch this one together. So that's what we'll be doing today. And of course, I'll periodically stop it and admire certain things and comment on certain things and how I think you can improve your writing if you're writing about hell and such. So, yeah, because honestly, none of us know what hell's like. None of us have been there. And, or even if hell's around. Because, theologically, I don't know if I believe in hell right yet. Yet. It's going to happen. It's just, I don't believe it's there right now. Who knows? Actually, that gets into a lot of stuff. So just, you know what, just keep your pre-notions of hell, because I just realized I'm like jumping into like time dilation and all this other stuff that most people are like, what? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
In the year of 1308, a writer, poet, and Italian man by the name of Dante Alighieri began to work on a poem that would end up becoming one of the most well-known pieces of fiction to ever exist in human history. It was called The Divine Comedy, and while none of it was funny, it did contain 338 pages of words that told a story about a guy venturing through hilarious realms. These were called Dante's Inferno, Purgatorio, and Paradiso.
Nobody's read Purgatorio and Paradiso. Nobody reads those. Everyone reads Dante's Inferno. Come on. Everyone reads Dante's Inferno. The other ones, they're like,
At the time, Dante had just been permanently exiled from his home Florence due to a war that had occurred between two political factions called the Guelphs. This left him with the only choice that any upset and petty artist would do in such a circumstance. He depicted a realm that contained the cruelest forms of torture, gave it 9 layers, and then decided to write in his political enemies as characters that deserve to be at the bottom. These layers...
I mean, what do you do? I mean, if you're really in that type of situation, I mean, yeah, sure. Write all your enemies in there. Yeah. I don't see any problem with that.
were split into circles of divine.
Also, if you have enemies in real life, a great way is to write them as the people that are being tortured and destroyed. Literally using their names or just using them as inspiration for characters that you're going to see future destruction of. It's very fun being a novelist because you can do stuff like that. I have bosses that I've had in my works, and I've had good people that I like in my works, and yeah, other people too.
punishment, with each of them being descendingly more gruesome and vile based on the sins that one had committed in the overworld. On the upper circles, you had limbo, lust, gluttony, greed, and wrath, described as places that would use torture methods ranging from eternal loneliness and violent storms all the way to endless combat or being forced to push boulders forever. In the lower circles, you had heresy, violence, fraud, and treachery, which also contained subdivisions of layers based on the specific and exact sin that was committed. This is where Dante decided to add demons into the equation and got real creative. In the circles of heresy and violence, humans would get trapped into burning pits, drowned in a lake of boiling hot blood, or would mutate into thorny trees and then get ripped apart by harpies. Mutated into thorny trees and then ripped apart by harpies. In the circle of fraud, you would
Sounds
get
about
sliced from the groin to the head, disfigured, forced to permanently walk with your head backwards, chased by lizards, or be buried alive upside down based on whichever subdivision of fraud was committed. And then finally, at
Treachery. Yeah, there you go. The big Satan.
the bottom layer of hell for treachery, the punishment here was to be forcefully lodged into a thick layer of ice. And what I love is that to Dante, the bottom layer of hell was supposed to be this exclusive realm that's dedicated to the cruelest, most fucked up people in all of existence. It's like the Burgine of evil people. Yet
So treachery, the actual sin of treachery, is saying one thing and doing another. That's the actual like definition of treachery. So like, if you don't know what it is, because I know there's like treacherous people out there and like people that say that, but like to actually be guilty of that sin, it's that you say one thing and you do another.
even then, the punishment he came up with was not to pour lava into their eyes, or force them to chug acid, or be impaled, or crushed, or wheeled, or any of the weird methods that we had actually done to other humans by that time.
It's true.
The worst punishment he could possibly imagine was the idea of being eternally stuck in ice next to Satan and all of his worst enemies. The premise behind the Divine Comedy revolved around a
Actually, funny fact. So how Dante got out is by climbing a tower. Yeah, but not any tower. Let's just say it's a very special tower. Very special tower from a very, very evil thing. If you catch my drift. Yeah, because Dante's Inferno is like that. I don't know. It's like head tie stuff. I'm telling you, they're weird, man. If there's tentacle porn back then, I guarantee you there'd be tons of that stuff.
self-inserted protagonist named Dante. He was written to be a character that had led a disgraceful life and would eventually go on a journey seeking redemption through his ascent from hell to purgatory and to paradise. And through an infinite combination of circumstance and coincidence, the first part of the Divine Comedy, called Dante's Inferno, would end up having a profound impact on the way art and fiction would forever depict hell. And you see, the thing about influence is that it kind of works in the same way as fire. One flame can trigger another, and then another, and then another, and before you know it, the whole village is burning without leaving any form of trace as to how it all began. This then leads me to the person that I believe is responsible for lighting that second match. A match that arrived 100 years later, when a Dutch artist had mysteriously left behind a shit ton of paintings. An artist who's probably a contender for the first place award and having the coolest name in history. That artist was Hieronymus Bosch. Now, if you try to look up any bit of information about Hieronymus
artwork is
Bosch, you
amazing.
will likely arrive at the common conclusion that not much
If you've really seen like any of his artwork, it like honestly is amazing. Just like you just sit there and look at these paintings for hours and you'll still find new stuff to look at. The fact that he wasn't celebrated during his time is really a shame. Yeah, because he was quite an amazing, accomplished man. Even his style with oil paintings, amazing. Anyways, we'll continue on.
is known about the guy. Even his supposed self-portrait was just a sketch that he had made a few years prior to his death. There is no actual confirmation as to whether or not that's supposed to be him. But what Bosch left behind for history to spend centuries analyzing were around 25 paintings. 16 of them were triptychs that contained beautiful and terrifying depictions of these realms that we have commonly known to understand. Most famously, his piece called The Garden of Earthly Delights paints this out in 3 parts. On the left, you have the Garden of Eden, where all things are chill and peaceful. And oh look, there's Adam and Eve. And oh look, there's Jesus hanging out with them. Are those birds eating frogs? How silly. And in the middle, you have humanity coexisting alongside the fruits of nature. They're partying. They're even kissing. They're having the time of their life.
So that right there is, I believe it's depicting heaven, or not heaven, but the new earth, most likely. And yeah.
And then on the right, you have demon-like figures pillaging their way into the kingdom, setting
hold
everything
on.
ablaze and making
I
humanity
gotta pause
pay for the...
this. Look at how detailed this painting is. Like, this is a little like piece of the painting, right? Very small, very small. And yet you can see the weird, hideous things like on towers. Like, this place is like alive, you know? Like, clearly he had a vision of this place and like he made it so it was alive. Like, it has things in it, you know? It's not just a background. It's like a living thing. I don't know. I find his art like amazing.
consequence of existing. It is the end of...
See? Like, look at this. You got all these tools and instruments and stuff like that, but at the same time, like, look how detailed it is too. Like, the faces in the background, you can see several of them. It's just really cool. And like the bird thing eating the person, amazing work. Love the guy.
times being fused by the embers of humiliation. God is dead, and all that is left for us is to be disfigured from our own sense of self, to hear the echoes of laughter being aimed at our own misery, and containing possibly the worst punishment of them all, being branded on the butt with musical notes. When played on the piano, this is what the sheet music translates to. Hieronymus,
Not very good.
you're a genius. All of Bosch's paintings were like this. They were filled with hundreds of small little moments
Yep.
that all added up to tell
Yeah,
a story out
it's
of
really
dreams
cool.
and nightmares and weird abstract depictions of humanity. The guy
It's
is
such a
now
cool-
dead. There's no information to find out about who he was
Yeah, and
or in
that,
what
that
context
is like
these
the really
paintings were
sad
made.
part too, because him dying. Like, look at this: a face with a mouth. You know, often hell was depicted as a mouth. People entering it and exiting it, and see people are trying to like flee. The hell maw is a thing. Comes from all kinds of different artwork of the past. Even like cultures like Egypt and stuff like that had the hell maw, or the concept of it at least. It's like I don't know. There's just something about his paintings. Like, look at it. Look how like detailed. Like, look at the gates. Even the shadows off the gates, and you have the background, and you have this like fat thing up there in the corner. Like, oh my gosh, it's just amazing. Like, literally, you can study these paintings for hours, and you just will always find something new. It's just cool. Just really cool.
we were left with here was a pile of stories to interpret and analyze to whatever way we please. And so we did. We spent decades and centuries seeking meaning through these depictions of human suffering. We were taught that hell could not only be a place that caused pain, but a place that made you lose your own sense of self.
Look at that. See, that's how close, like, you can see the fibers of the painting itself. Like, that's how close you can get to these things and see the detail and like the fine craftsmanship of this artwork. It's just amazing. And also, I think a lot of people would be really would benefit them to design a lot of their demons off of something like this. Because, like, yeah, our demons are freaky, but like, this is raw, like really weird and raw. You know, like a Dark Souls type game. If you were to base your monsters off this, actually, I think Dark Souls did base some of their stuff off this. I think especially you can see that in the fire stages with the big head things that breathe fire on you. Amazing work.
It
Amazing.
could be confusing and humiliating. These concepts would then ignite the flames of inspiration of some of our greatest painters in history: Michelangelo, Peter Paul Rubens, and William Blake, all adding in their own version of what they imagined such a place to be.
Another amazing, The Fall of the Damned. It's just an amazing piece. You can see the angels, you know, you at the top where the light's gleaming in, like with the shields beating him down. And you can also, like, if you look towards the foot in the corner, You can see the demons like grabbing them and pulling them in and like enjoying the fact that they're down. You know, it's just so cool. It's such a cool painting.
Pretty much any painter with a name and an opinion at some point depicted their own version of hell. Out of all of them, my favorite would easily have to be the works of Gustave Doré. In the 1860s, he released a massive set of sketches for Dante's poems, which allowed for me to put visuals into that section. These objectively look stunning, by the way, especially coming from someone who's
These pictures are they were carved in wood. So like what he would do is he'd make like basically were giant stamps, and he could like literally put the wood carving into an inkwell and then stamp it onto a page. It's so cool what he did. It's just really cool. All these things are just so amazing. So amazing.
Obsessed with the art style of manga, but the one that I love most is his painting called Dante and Virgil, which shows the two of them walking through the bottom layer
It's Virgil.
of hell. Mostly because it looks like they're staring at the people like, yes, it sucks to suck. Even in different religious contexts.
Yep. This is classic Japanese one. These things are, I think, oni, and they're boiling people alive. So like Japan has a very interesting outlook on hell, because in their religion they have the I think it's 5 different hells or 4, I forget, but they have weird depictions that are very similar to our depiction, well, Dante's depictions of hell, which is just very cool, because at the same time they were completely worlds apart, you know, but yet they come up with similar concepts. I think that's really neat.
Texts, hell comes with totally different rules based on where you're looking at. In Hinduism and Buddhism, where the concept of karma plays a significant role, hell is viewed as an in-between place for one's death and rebirth. If you lived a life filled with severely bad karma, then you get temporarily sent to a hell called Naraka, and are left to stay there until you've
Naraka.
been completely stripped of that karma. But as the centuries passed and the rock spun, media would go on to shift and recreate this realm of divine punishment in as many ways as possible. Some of its key elements were changed, but some of it was never able to detach itself from the idea of hell. But all of this has led me to ask one single question here. What does hell become? What is the average person, regardless of religion?
And that is probably what most people picture as hell, which is hilarious. It's because of the last sentence in the Bible, or not the last sentence in the Bible. The depiction of Gehenna in the lake of fire being described as hell. I think that you shouldn't take that literally, like a lake of fire. You should take that figuratively, I think.
Just upbringing, picture when they hear the H word. Is it a flaming pit of lava filled with bats and caves and demons and Satan? Or is it...
I wouldn't picture it as bats, you know? Clearly not bats. It's like, why would God damn all bats to be in hell, you know?
empty and cold and filled with ghosts and screaming and suffering? Is the pain physical or is it internal? Is it eternal or is it temporary? Even if you begin to barely pay attention to it, you'll realize that the influence of Dante's Inferno has left its mark in pretty much everywhere. Sometimes it's obvious, like in Doom, where you're practically playing as Dante trying to escape from the depths of hell. Hell, you could even say that any game design with levels and floors and prisoners all follow the same formula of his circles. But sometimes you gotta stick your nose out a little.
Hey, that's actually kind of funny. Yeah, there's kind of a point to it. You know, video games being like platformers and stuff like that. Well, or any video game that has layers and floors or levels and stages. It's a bit, yeah, it's a bit like that.
Little bit. Sometimes you gotta sniff out its...
Actually, it's cool to look at Warhammer. Warhammer's depiction is quite like that.
Influence. For example, in the anime series Made in Abyss, you have a main character named Riko, who seeks to uncover a mystery behind the crater that's at the center of her hometown. As she explores into its depths, she begins to realize the terrors that lie beneath.
You know, that show completely copied, what game is it? Eternia Odyssey. I think it's Eternia Odyssey. Yeah. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and whatever. Made a bunch of them in Japan. And like that show totally copied them as far as like the depiction of a big giant hole that just appeared in the middle of town.
the ground that she's been living upon, each layer gradually becoming more and more haunting until she eventually reaches a point where her own body begins to reject the environment itself. And sometimes you have to really roll up your sleeves to try to look closely at who's been diddling around with the concept of a divine punishment. For example, Franz Kafka's Metamorphosis is a divine punishment. It's a simple story about a guy named Greg who wakes up one day to discover
familiar
that
with
he's
this
now become a giant cockroach. It then goes on to describe in great detail the specific and horrifying aftermath of what it's like to deal with that. For example, he wants to get out of bed, but he can't because he has tiny little leg hands now because he's a cockroach. He has to go to work and his mom's like, honey, you have to go to work, but he can't because he's a cockroach. Hell has now metamorphosized itself into anything of the imagination. Sometimes it's now a plushie. Sometimes it can be a costume for kids. Sometimes it's used to describe a minimum wage job or a $20 game on Steam. Sometimes it's this.
Hell is a dark forest where your dad opens his rib cage and invites you to dance.
What? Okay.
Sometimes it's a realm that shows up in the South Park musical, where Kenny gets sent to the afterlife and ends up meeting Satan, who's in a deep homoerotic relationship with Saddam Hussein. This later on becomes a pressing issue throughout the movie because Satan begins to feel unheard. The deity of pure evil then goes on to mention that at its core, maybe their relationship has begun to falter due to their different types of love languages. Satan cares deeply about spending quality time, while Saddam, on the other hand, clearly is more in line with their expression of physical touch. And then after this, oh, I'm sorry, did you forget what this video was about? My goal here today is to do a little bit of exploring through the depths of hell depictions that were made by insane people. I want to see what are some of the ways that we've mutated Dante's poems and turned it into our own weird creations. This now leads me to the part where I'd like to mention the obvious. This is a two-way discussion. If you're watching this and you happen to think to yourself, hey, that's not weird, I just so happen to know many things that are much more strange and weird than that, then please, go ahead and let me know what other media I should consider. I am just a guy who likes things. I am not a database. But this
Well, I'm an aficionado on this subject, so who knows?
first one I'm gonna mention should not be a surprise to any of you. And I'm so confident in that belief that I'm gonna ask you to tell me what piece of media do I just so happen to love that just so happens to have a weird depiction of hell in it. It's fucking Chainsaw Man.
I'm not familiar with Chainsaw Man, actually, at all.
In chapter 63 of Chainsaw Man, there's a scene where Denji and his team of devil hunters
So this
end
is-
up getting in a
like, I
fight
can
with
learn
a
some
doll
stuff.
lady named Santa Claus. And right when she's at the brink
What?
of death, at the very last second, Santa Claus decides to form a contract with the Hell Devil. This then gets followed up by a panel of a giant godlike hand spawning over the building and then grabbing a hold of its existence. Not the building, its existence. Then suddenly, the members of the public safety devil hunting team end up finding themselves in a strange place. Below them is a field of grass. In the middle, there's a bathtub. Above them are a bunch of doors, and on the grass are tiny chopped up fingers scattered everywhere. This is what the author of this manga, Tatsuki Fujimoto, envisioned for himself when he thought of hell. But before any of the characters can ask what's going on, they then take note of one of the doors being swung open, letting out a mysterious drop of black liquid that falls onto the floor. It's far away, but they can tell that it's beginning to take shape. This shape then proceeds to introduce itself, striding forward on a walkway made out of an astronaut graveyard and then revealing to the hunters what it really is. The Darkness Devil. And what I love, especially in this panel, is the role this devil's cloak plays in the composition of the panel. It's not just a thing that's taking up space, it's subtracting from it. It's in the same shade as the background behind it, removing any evidence of things being there, removing the proof of its existence. In the story of Chainsaw Man, there are devils that coexist alongside humanity. And what I love so dearly about this manga is the way that Fujimoto explores this. In it, there is a devil for every single human fear. The fear of snakes, leeches, dolls, mouths.
So I have no clue about this because I've never paid attention to this manga at all, and maybe I might have to because this is convincing me.
muscles, ears, you name it. And their strength and power in this universe is fully reliant on how much humanity fears that concept. This is what the bitterness devil looks like, and this is what the chicken devil looks like. While on the other hand, this is what the cockroach devil looks like, and this is what the gun devil looks like. And this place that we have stumbled upon is the source to all of these fears. Behind each door that kind of looks like that one part of Monsters Inc. lies the entrance to where these devils come from. And Fujimoto decided to present the forms of these fears through our own understanding of them. Light fundamentally is the dominant source to how humans collect information. Without it, we are nothing.
Very
we would
true.
be unable to survive as a species. According to NASA, around 95% of our galaxy is unable to interact with light. This is the reason why this manga depicts the darkness devil as such a terrifying creature. Its inspirations are rooted in how we've been exploring space, where humans have tried and tried again to understand this void of darkness. And if that's the case, if that's really what's going on here, that the devils in Chainsaw Man are birthed from our own fears, then that also means that we are its creator. We are behind the steering wheel of the things that exist in it, and we get to decide which ones are the
That makes
strongest.
sense.
This gets explained more thoroughly in the arc where the main characters meet the Eternity Devil. At first, they find themselves exploring through a hotel, left with the simple assignment of killing a small devil that has placed a curse on the building. Eventually, they find it and they do exactly that. The main reason why this mission was so simple was because we as humans don't ever really think about the concept of eternity. We don't know anything that is eternal, so we don't really care for it. But as they continue on with their mission, they begin to realize that this hotel didn't have any exits. Going downstairs or upstairs led them to the exact same floor. Even worse, the devil hunters arrive at the conclusion that time itself has become stuck here. One of them decides to revisit the place where they initially killed off the Eternity Devil, only to then realize that throughout this time it had been gradually becoming stronger, leading us to understand that the force behind each devil is also ever changing. We know this best from what the gun devil becomes throughout the manga. As humanity progressed, it also ended up being the creator of a monster. In Chainsaw Man, we are the ones responsible for the existence of hell. But why don't we sit on that burger
That's
for a
actually
second?
kind of cool.
I'm sure that whole spiel about eternity won't come back later in this video or anything like that. However, on the spectrum of being either cool or
God.
weird, I'd say Chainsaw Man definitely falls.
All right. So that's the spoiler. He's gonna cover. I don't know anything in this video. I haven't watched it yet, but I know he's gonna cover. I have no help. I must scream. Very good short story. Very good. Just very good.
The category of being
And yes,
sick
that
as
is
hell.
hell.
No pun.
Actually, one of my stories was inspired by that book or that short story. I don't really know what to call it. Serialized story. It's an end to all you know. Yeah, but it's totally inspired.
Intended. Hell, pun intended, was depicted as a field of grass with chopped up fingers and covered with doors to all of our fears. It's even got a bathtub in the middle of it for reasons that I don't really understand why to this day. But I say now let's turn the knob a little bit on the scale of weirdness. Let's move on to another story where instead of hell just being one small setting of many, it is the story. Let's talk about a manhwa where hell is a battle royale.
What the hell is a
Helper is a manhwa about a guy named Jang, who after getting into a bike accident wakes up to find himself in the middle of hell. Except hell in this case is an empty white plain filled with ghosts and spirits and bones and
I'm not
floating
familiar with
apartment
this either.
buildings. On his wrist he notices that he's now wearing a bracelet that contains one single white stripe. The bracelet represents his life force, indicating how far he is from being able to escape from this strange place. The way the afterlife in the story works is really simple. Jang currently has one ticket, and if he can figure out a way to obtain 100 of them, he is allowed to escape from this place. But if you lose all your tickets, then you're doomed to eternally stay in this realm as a massive blob of dark matter. This then entails Jang to go on a journey where he fights through a vast set of enemies in hopes of obtaining all of these tickets, which eventually ends up turning the manhwa from something you simply just read into something you actually get to experience. Rather than it guiding you through the page like a manga, manhwa is a medium where moments get revealed to you. Fight scenes in Helper are uniquely able to carry this weight along with them because of how often the author back is allowed to dedicate multiple panels to the build-up and then leave you with this nuclear bomb of a payoff. But none of those things are the real source of my obsession with this story. No, I'd say it comes from the grains of creative insanity that are planted within it. Its blend of colors, its art style, its gradients between fashion and hip-hop and mysticism. It's the fact that hell, to the author, was an empty abyss filled with bright and vibrant concepts. The first main example of this comes from when Jang gets told to turn into his afterlife form. In the 4th chapter, Jang meets a spirit named Cece, who tells him that he should probably go put some clothes on. She then goes on to tell him that he should try closing his eyes and materializing the experience of his own death. This then leads him to turn into his actual character design, coated in black rubber, branded by the logo of his previous gang, and strapped with tires for weapons onto his hands. Once this occurs, Cece then goes on to take note of the giant knife that was placed in the middle of his design. In this world, that means that his death was caused by a betrayal, not an accident. And I think this single moment represents the core philosophy behind this entire manhwa. Hell.
So the design philosophy, like of everything in this manhwa. I've never even heard of manhwas before. That's really weird. Anyways, the entire force of what the design philosophy is has to do with how they died. That's kind of cool. Like different things with the design depicts how they died. Or like, yeah, that's nifty.
In this universe is a place where your spirit symbolizes who you are to your core. It grabs inspiration from the roots of Buddhism, where the afterlife is interpreted as an in-between place during rebirth. You're not left to be there for an eternity, but are still forced to suffer the consequences of your own sins. In this case, Jang is forced to fight his way through hell to earn his place back into the overworld. And there's something that I just find to be so endearing about the fact that the author decided to view hell through this lens. It's like as if you handed over a Unity file to Satan and all he knew what to do was to just take a bunch of assets from Project Earth and then use them incorrectly. The other thing that I find fascinating about this depiction is how deeply it explores the idea of how society would structure itself in the afterlife. I think often we picture ourselves at the gates of a heaven or a hell and then don't really look too far ahead into what a civilization is supposed to look like.
That is actually really true. Most depictions of hell do not have society. I really liked Wraith the Oblivion for okay, this is getting really like weird. The World of Darkness is an RPG series, and Wraith the Oblivion was one of the games. Think Vampire the Masquerade, only it's ghosts. So they had like a whole society of like elders and stuff like that that really like formed the society. Basically, like the head honchos were like older people, because if you think about it, like they've been dead for like thousands of years, right? So the eldest people are like the kings and the rulers of like hell. I don't know, just really cool. You should check it out sometime. They also have like maelstroms and stuff like that to like destroy things. It's just a cool concept. But yeah, there's that one.
There. In Helper, there are factions of society. There's bureaucracy and currency and a government that rules over the entire underworld. There's a place called Midtown, which is ran by a group of people called the Swear Word Gang, containing a bunch of
actually, ironically, he might have been inspired by, Oblivion, Wraith the Oblivion, because a lot of this is sounding very familiar.
Goblins that are led by a dude whose design looks like this, blinged out in a bunch of jewelry and a chain that at the minimum looks like it weighs 100 pounds. How much ketamine would it take for someone to even come up with that? Easily, I'd say he's my favorite character in the manhwa, purely because when he gets into fights, his preferred form of combat is through breakdancing that then summons buildings out of the ground. And then we have Satan, who in this manhwa is designed as a regular guy in a suit, wearing a tie and a pair of sunglasses that are made out of hands. And I don't mean to make this seem like a segment where I talk about colors and things to look at. I more so want to emphasize the artistic bravery it takes for someone to ever do that. To use a piece of fiction that has so commonly been reused and then turn it into something like this. Something that would have literally broken Dante's brain back then. He would have probably been like, This is a sacrilegious. But that's enough about the depictions of hell that I find to be artistically impressive. Let's start diving into some of the actually fucked up depictions of hell. Let's get into something that explores in great detail the experience of what it's truly like to suffer in a realm for an eternity.
Yes, there we go. I knew it. I knew it. I have no mouse and I must scream. I knew it. I knew it. Okay. So, yeah, you're going to be seeing some really fucked up shit. Yeah.
Harlan
boy.
Ellison's I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream takes place on an Earth that has destroyed itself from recognition. Some time ago, humanity began to develop a machine called Am as a weapon of war, and as Earth's most powerful nations began to become obsessed with what it was capable of, they decided to invest decades into improving it. Over time, Am became more refined, more evolved, and more efficient. It eventually became a device more powerful than anything that had ever existed in history, and in its final state, it became sentient. Am had downloaded everything it would ever need to download, and after consuming this enormous soup of data and history and all of existence, it arrived at one single conclusion. It hated humanity for ever creating it. It hated—
Hey, by the way, it's happening right now with the march towards AI. As a Garrett Spider. Well, we risk that. Granted, I don't think it's ever going to get to that point, but hey, it might.
the way humans had spent their time. It hated the fact that it was stuck in a box while humans got to be flesh. And it hated the way it could never touch or feel or love or be anything but the most powerful thing. And for this, for becoming God, it decided to eradicate everything. Billions of lives were evaporated in seconds. The earth itself became a clump of dust and lava. And Am went on to personally handpick out 5 human beings to keep alive.
So he's the pictures that you're seeing right now, the little animation thing, this is actually from I think it's a game for the Amiga, which is I have no mouth and therefore I must scream or whatever it is. But it's a very interesting game. You can pick different characters and you can experience it. If you don't want to read the book and you want to experience the story or like experience the I don't know, existential terror, I guess, of it. Having the game, watching somebody play through the game or playing through it yourself is very, very good. You know, it's slightly different, but it's not different enough that you don't have to really worry about it.
For himself. This then leads us to the point where Harlan Ellison's short story begins.
But I would prefer if you read the actual story because you're going to get a lot more out of it. Just because you get more out of a story than what you do out of a video game.
It starts off with its protagonist, one of 5 people, describing the ways that Am had been torturing them for the last 109 years. The first thing he immediately did was turn their bodies immortal. This allowed for the humans to understand what it's like to be him, and it allowed for him to inflict as much pain as he pleased without any of them dying. From then on, for the next century straight, he proceeded to make this set of human beings suffer in the most intricate and precise ways possible. One of the humans, named Benny, who once was a brilliant researcher, was picked out to be repeatedly exposed to so much radiation to a point where he became unrecognizable. Later on, out of Am's boredom, he forces the 5 of them to listen to the loudest sound possible, one that was just high enough in frequency for the ear to comprehend. The protagonist goes on to mention how he would try to cover his ears, only to then realize that the sound was not coming from reality.
There is also a graphic novel. If you want to read the graphic novel, that is also another way of checking out the story. It's a very interesting story. It's very good, and yeah, you should read it.
Forcing their brains to hear it. He was so powerful that he could do whatever he wanted with their senses. At another point, purely for its own entertainment, Am makes Ted's nose experience the worst smell possible. A combination of sulfur, rot, milk, human scalps, oil, chalk dust, grease, you name it. At another point, Am spawns in a giant bird that summons the most powerful hurricane in all of existence. It sends the 5 of them into flight, leading them to constantly be swung around in piles of ground, rusted metal, and glass shards, mutilating simulating them over and over and over again, with Ted going on to say that they were in the air for weeks. When they landed, Ellison went to describe how their bodies shifted through red, gray, and black. But out of all the pains that Am was inflicting upon them, the worst one was to simply just make them starve. The 5 of them were immortal, but their bodies still rotted like humans. Ted goes on to say that when you starve like this for a month, your hunger becomes alive. All of these events occurred as Am would make sure to constantly leave a signal within their brain as to the exact hour and amount of days that had passed. By
the way, the song on here is from a game called Loon Acid. I suggest that one too. It's a really cool game. Very, very interesting visuals.
Then it was Thursday, marking the 109th year of them having to go through this. The final straw came when he left the humans with the belief that if they hiked towards a cave for months, they would finally be able to find some food. And the most fucked up thing, the most cruel punishment he places onto them is that after traveling for so long, to a point where they were passing out every other hour from the pain of starvation, they eventually arrive at the cave. And in it, the humans are in complete disbelief. They find out that there truly was a giant pile of food containers placed at the center of the cave. But the only thing is that Am left it all there without a can opener.
Yep.
Hate. Let me tell you how much I've come to hate you since I began to live. There are 387.44 million miles of printed circuits in wafer-thin layers that fill my complex. If the word hate was engraved on each nanoangstrom of those hundreds of millions of miles, it would not equal one billionth of the hate I feel for humans at this micro-instant for you.
This, I think, goes more in line with a hell that had been depicted by Hieronymus Bosch, placing not just an emphasis on a depiction of hell that tortures people physically, but also turns it into a realm that peels off your own sense of self. It's a place that can be humiliating. At that point, it doesn't matter if you're put through the worst pain or the loudest sound, it's the fact that your senses are no longer yours. You are a toy for someone else's entertainment, for an eternity. I think Tatsuki Fujimoto, when depicting our fear of the concept of a forever, was unintentionally highlighting something about us that we don't often consider. As mortal things, we rarely ever spend the time to imagine what suffering for an eternity really means. Take a good look at yourself and think about how much time has passed for you to be the age that you're at now. And then imagine that lifespan of yours was a blade of grass. Now imagine that eternity was a field, and then the whole earth. And then realize that eternity is even bigger than that. That's how long you will have to be in this place as a toy for someone else's entertainment. By the end of the story, Am becomes so paranoid about the possibility of Ted figuring out a way to escape that he eventually decides to regress his body to a point where it becomes just a mush of jelly, with no arms, with no mouth, and a brain that functions worse than a vegetable. Ted tries to describe what it's like to be in this state.
I will say the word now. Now. It took me 10 months to say now.
The worst thing that hell could ever do to you is leave you with no mouth.
Yep. Because it's essentially removing who you are. And to me, that's the scariest thing ever. One of the key, like, because like writers always use their experiences in life to help them create horror. Well, I've experienced some scary stuff that happened in life, but the most scary thing I've ever like actually had to come to grips with is back in 2019, actually December of 2019, on it was around Christmas, and I had a stroke, and the stroke left me almost motionless. I couldn't move around, right? I couldn't speak. I could only kind of weakly say things, and I lost a lot of my cognition and my abilities to draw, write. I lost pretty much everything, and I was really worried at one point that I was going to be a husk. Like, I was actually coming to grips with the idea of becoming a husk, like not even a person at that point. And yeah, it was a very hard time. I recovered, obviously, and you're seeing me now, but if you're ever wondering why I went away for a few years, from back then when I was doing the stuff online, that's why. I just completely lost myself, and I'm just glad that I'm back and I'm able to talk and do all the stuff that I used to do. Because that was really frightening for me. Cost me a lot of money too. But anyways, yeah, let's continue on. But my point being is that fear of not being able to do those things. That was a really scary thing, and I think like we take that for granted, like um, personality we take for granted, and the very fact that you're able to depict yourself and express yourself as yourself is something that I've learned to appreciate. But in knowing that you can write better stuff because I have that experience, I have that in my books. Very very unique experience to have when your body can't function.
And feel the need to scream. Okay, so that one was objectively pretty fucked up. Harlan
Yeah.
Ellison says that he apparently wrote that story in the span of one night. But what I didn't know until making this video was that he published this in 1967. It is 2025. But now I want to jump ship here from the violent depictions of hell. I don't think I've really got anything left in the tank here that's more physically brutal than that. Instead, for the ending section of this video, I want to aim towards something much more ominous. I want to ask the question of what if hell wasn't simply just a place? What if it wasn't a part of the afterlife? What if instead it was hidden deep into the abyss of our own reality?
House of Leaves. Yep. This is a cool one too.
Somewhere in the suburbs of Virginia, a home patiently waits for the arrival of its 4 new owners, Will Navidson, Karen Green, and their 2 kids. This place that they moved into is big, containing 2 stories and a backyard that goes deep enough for one to even get lost in. Frankly, moving to this place was a really big deal for the family. It helped them find peace from the chaos that had been consuming them in their previous life. And that was the case for quite some time until Will and Karen were met with 3 strange phenomena. The first one occurred when the family came back one night from a short trip and noticed something odd about the entrance to their children's bedroom. It was no longer there. Instead, there was now a random door placed in front of their door. When opened, it led to a space that was about the size of a closet and covered in matte black painting. At the end of it lied the actual entrance to the kids' bedroom. This on its own was enough to make them question their own sense of reality. When this happened, the family had already been living in the house for long enough that it'd be impossible to ever miss such a detail. And to their credit, it's hard to come up with an answer as to what one is supposed to do in such a circumstance. Should you call the police or should you pray to a god? Will Navidson eventually came to the conclusion that he was going to try to check the blueprints of the home. And this eventually ends up inviting the second strange phenomenon. When measuring the dimensions of the house, he begins to notice something that had broken physics itself. The inside of the house was measuring to be bigger than the outside. No matter how many times he double and triple check, it all came back to the same exact result. He then spent weeks seeking professional input, using the fanciest tools in the book, yet still, it all came back the same.
So this is a tool that people use often when they're depicting horror in general. It's changing the physical properties of something to impossibilities. So like it's very hard to think of these things, but like when they come up, like for instance, you're drinking water from a glass and it never empties. It's a bottomless water jug, basically. Or you're filling a cup and you see yourself putting the water in, but there's nothing in the cup. That's another way of explaining it. But basically, it's doing things in your writing that makes the mundane. Basically, what you want to do is you want to have somebody outside of the mundane. So you take something that you take for granted, like every day, like that. Your stuff. Actually, it was funny because we talked about this in church today. Relying on God's physics because the physics of everything is so stable, you know. But imagine if you were driving and then I don't know, distance changes, you know? Like you're driving for an hour, but then you don't seem to go anywhere. It's kind of like the same concept here. You have a room where you have more space inside your house than you should. And that it's enough for just hinting at it. Like you don't need to throw it. You need to use it as a slow burn, but that's enough to really throw somebody into the fear mode because obviously things should happen um semi well, it should happen regularly, Like regular stuff shouldn't be different. And because it is, that sets the person to panic. And so that's a good way to trick the brain into thinking about these things, like how to create panic and how to create that fear effect.
Will and his brother had continued to remeasure everything to a point of exhaustion. They simply refused to accept the idea that what stood in front of them was the only thing in the universe that didn't land upon an equal sign. This then eventually leads us to the third strange phenomenon. Months later, Will discovers that a new doorless hallway had suddenly appeared downstairs. Its presence felt cold. Inside, everything was pitch black, covered in the same material as the closet phenomenon upstairs. But this time, the inside of this space seemed to somehow extend beyond the distance of the house itself. Will then proceeds to enter into it with a flashlight. He notices that the hallway was leading him to even deeper hallways, ones that had to have at least been the length of a stadium. It then led him to doorways and rooms and chambers. Eventually, he comes across a massive entrance, guiding him to a space that felt much colder. Inside, this time, the flashlight was only able to reach the floor, indicating that this room must have been exponentially bigger than any of the other ones. Will, at this point, comes to the conclusion that he must do whatever it takes to fully understand this house. The next time, he would need supplies, food, camping gear, and a crew of people that are ready to spend multiple days studying this place. About another month passes by, and the crew begins their escapade into the hallways. For the most part, everything seemed to go to plan. But it wasn't until a while later when Will began to doubt his own memory. Some of the hallways seemed different this time. The dimensions of other ones seemed much wider than he remembered before. He could have sworn he went left here last time, but this time, there is no left. Another day passes and they eventually arrive at the same big ominous entrance. Yet even with their fancy high-tech flashlights, light was only able to land onto the floor. The only bit of information that clued them in on the space was how far their echoes would travel when speaking. If one were to take a guess, it was probably bigger than the whole neighborhood. Eventually, as they pass through this abyss, they arrive at what indicated to be the center of this room, a spiral staircase that led to the ground beneath. This would then lead them to the moment where the clues had started to unravel themselves. The crew begins to head down the staircase. An hour passed, and it became difficult to imagine how far this thing could even go. All they could do was walk left, over and over again, taking breaks here and there until time itself began to feel like a loose concept. Without light and without knowing the corners of this space, Will and the crew began to find themselves feeling unprepared over this whole escapade. One of them eventually speaks up and says, "I swear it feels like we've been here forever." And after mentioning this, he begins to feel an overwhelming sensation of what he could only describe as seasickness, which may seem like an insignificant detail until you really try to ask the question, why would someone ever get seasick from a staircase? Then the crew puts an immediate stop to their footsteps and eventually come to a realization. The staircase has become significantly bigger. This leads Will to come back to that moment when he was thrown off by his own memory of what this place used to be, and finally, he comes up with a theory. This place that they're in is ever shifting. House of Leaves is an absolute mindfuck of a book, mainly because of the way it even attempts to describe you these events. What you've been listening to, this retelling of what Will discovers about his house, is only just a tiny fragment of what's going on in the story. These events are the description of a documentary called The Navidson Record, which is being reviewed by a blind schizophrenic man named Zampano, which is being retold to us by a man named Johnny, which is being rewritten to us by a publishing team after Johnny went missing, which is being explained to you through a video essay. And as all of these timelines are coexisting, and as Will continues to explore further into the depths of this house, the book itself will begin to be affected by these events. First, he'll come across the hallway, and you'll start to notice that the font.
So, this book, House of Leaves, I remember in high school, my teacher, Mr. McLean, he was one of my English teachers. He said like it was the only book where he appreciated the different, like it had something to do with the story itself. And the story came alive basically. And I like that concept of the story coming alive. Granted, I don't do fun stuff like that in my books, but still, it would be really interesting to play with that sometime. You know, it's just an idea or concept.
Looks slightly different from before. Then the author will sometimes forget to ever use a period. Then it'll seem like some of the parts of the book have gone missing.
If you haven't noticed, I'm a word nerd, so like I really do like stuff like this. It makes me appreciate it more, I guess.
Then passages from other texts will begin to invade the page, and then it'll stop printing correctly, and then the text goes sideways, and then it turns into musical notes, and then you yourself will begin to lose track of time, and then you'll realize that nothing has made sense for the last 10 chapters, and before you know it, you have finished the whole thing, and now it feels like you know too many things you shouldn't. When Dante described his first layer, Limbo, he placed a big emphasis on the idea that the people who end up here weren't necessarily sinners. However, they were still doomed to eternally stay in a place of nothing. No crime, no pain to experience, no anything. Just left in a place to be and to think. When describing his last layer for treachery, he seemed to believe that the worst of mankind deserved the punishment of being stuck in place, left to be frozen in ice for an eternity. Will, throughout this book, ends up becoming psychotically obsessed with the inside of this house, to an extent where he outright abandons the responsibilities of his own family, his own health, and his own emotional well-being. And he behaves this way for reasons that he himself cannot even understand. Since the very first appearance of this hallway, he has become enamored by this void of space, this place that ever shifts around its visitors' perception. The reason why the hallways had become wider was because the crew began to feel lost, and once paranoia began to plant its seed within their conscience, the reality began to hear the sounds of growls off in the distance. All of this became clear once they walked down this staircase, a staircase that grew in size as they began to doubt their ability to arrive at its exit. If you decide to step foot into this house, and you begin to believe that you can never get out, then it'll guarantee you never will. House of Leaves is about a place that is made out of you. As far as I know, nobody has ever come back to tell the tale about what exactly happens after a person dies. But still, I think part of the contract in being human is that we're meant to sit on a sphere and obsess about the things that exist on the other side. History has made us turn that imagination into physical things, into poems and paintings and everything possible. They were guesses, but they also served as evidence of how deeply curious we've always been about it, about the specific events that happen to a soul once our bones become soft and our bodies become just another part of the ground. The paradise part, I guess, seemed obvious, but when it came to the bad place, we always seemed to leave so much room for the imagination. Sometimes that imagination led us to a realm filled with lava and caves and demons. Other ones were chambers of torture or were cold and empty and were catered to our own very specific nightmares. The idea of being stuck in ice with your own political enemies, a place where a robot tortures your nervous system, or a monster created out of our own fears, or a house that shapeshifts into our own perception. And the thing about these depictions, and the reason why I found myself becoming so obsessed with this topic, was that they can also reveal a lot about a person. What are their...
So I also think that as much as it is to fantasize about hell, it's also equally important to fantasize about heaven or the afterlife in the good sense, because I believe that it's something that we can't even fathom. Like it's so great that we can't even fathom. The way I look at it, like God took 7 days to make Earth and everything like that, right? And so if God's depicting heaven being made, or like the new heaven and the new earth, and he's spent, year. Now, granted, this is a depiction because God could have done it in an instant if he wanted to. He speaks in a way that we can understand in terms that we can understand. It's not necessarily how he did it or whatever, you know. But God, in a way that we can understand, he's taken how many weeks, you know, since Christ died on the cross and went into heaven, you know, rose from the dead and went to heaven. Uh like I believe that completely. Um, you know, if you don't, that's cool. You'll learn it later. But anyways, i- if God spent only a week and he made everything that we know, how much is the 2000 plus years that has gone by since then, you know? How much has he created? I don't know. It's a pretty wild thought. And once again, he could have done this in an instant, like literally just a second. And technically he did. Um, the entire like time span of things. The only reason why we experience time the way we do is because we're falling through it, you know. If time was like if we actually were to look at time for what it is, it's just a long string of just falling through it. So, you know, it doesn't really matter. Um, but yeah, I think that I've, I've explained myself, I guess.
Their fears? What are they ashamed of? Where does their fucked up source of creativity wander off to when nobody else is looking? As weird and as crazy as it may sound, I think there's something beautiful about that. I think that these are all just simply an act of people doing the exact same thing, painting a canvas from their own understanding of misery. This point was made clear to me when coming across the work of Keiichi Tanami, who over the span of several decades made the most batshit insane depictions of anything I had ever seen in my life. It wins the award for the whole premise of this video basically. And when provided with a little bit of context, I think the picture becomes a lot more clear. Keiichi Tanami was a survivor of the bombing in Tokyo during World War II. At the age of 9, he was branded with the memories of his hometown being covered in a sea of flames, even remembering on that day that the fish in his tank became deformed from the nuclear radiation. When looking back on it, he said this, "But then something occurs to me. Was that moment real? Dream and reality are all mixed up in my memories, recorded permanently in this ambiguous way. What may seem like paintings filled with nothing but the work of pure insanity is simply just the result of Tanami pointing a mirror back at us. They are a reflection of how he views the world to be. They are the echoes of a man screaming to take back the childhood that was once stolen from him a long time ago." In this last August, Keiichi Tanami passed away at the age of 88. And may that guy rest in peace for an eternity.
Wow.
Howdy. Thanks for making it to the end of the video. Whenever I don't include a sponsor in one of these, I've decided to just swap it out for a segment where I put info and a link to a small charity or a nonprofit that you could donate to instead. These get handpicked out by me as ones that could really use some help right now, so make sure to stick around if you happen to be interested in that. As a little spiel, I'll first just plug in the Patreon for this channel to let you guys know that it does play a huge role in whether or not I keep being able to make videos like this or not. So if you enjoy my content, I highly recommend you check out the page and come join the Discord server. I have a channel for answering all your questions. I've got a bunch of editing tutorials and behind the scenes stuff posted onto there. Pretty much everything and anything that you have ever parasocially wanted to know about me is right on the Patreon. So if you want to support me with that, your help is super appreciated. Now, for the fundraiser that I picked out, this time it's actually a place that I used to volunteer at when I was in college. It's a nonprofit called Shariah's Closet, and basically they're a center for taking clothing donations. They have their staff check and see if the donated items are new and wearable, they store them, and then they use what's in stock to make clothing packages for both the homeless and people that are in low-income households. So for example, let's say they had a client named Dave, and Dave needs professional attire for a job interview. The people at Shariah's Closet would then make a personalized bag for him with stuff that's all in his size, and then they'd hand it over to him for free. It's great. Everybody I worked with over there was lovely, and especially in times like these, I think it's more important than ever to help out our communities that need the support the most. I wish you all well. I'll be doing
Hold on. This is part of my stroke thing. Hold on. Whenever I see things that have an emotional impact on me, even in like the slightest way, I freeze up and I can't. It's weird. But anyways, yeah, Shariah's Closet. You should check it out. I'll put it back on the screen because you know if he wanted to shout it out, well, there we go. It's the least I can do. So Shariah's Closet If you have any spare clothing or money or whatever, like feel free to donate. Uh, Good programs like that do need help, and yeah, I mean, really should help each other out, like in these times, because they're absolutely right. Times are hard, and especially here in the states. Um, Granted, we're not suffering or anything like that, but still, providing home, clothing for the homeless and stuff like that is very important. And low income people especially. I like that the Shirai's closet that he was just talking about it mentioned that it's not just the homeless that get that; it's the low income too. Because really, low income people are really who we should focus on uh, a lot of times. Because most of the homeless, like if they don't want to be homeless, they won't be homeless. Um, but it's low income people that really struggle, you know, uh, and even like moderate income people. Um, so the food pantry that I help out at accepts everyone, and it used to be that they had like income guidelines, but now that like the things that have happened recently in our zeitgeist, I guess, our history, um, has really changed income, and some of the people that are above the poverty line, uh, they can't afford food. Like they're above the poverty line, and like all the bills have gotten so expensive that they can't afford food. So like we they try to give them out lots of food to everyone, you know. Just making sure if you're not, I'm gonna shout them out. So Samaritan Inc. If you're in the greater Bangor area, they are a wonderful organization. They do not accept any type of payment for themselves. Everything's volunteer, like all of it, and it also we people need volunteers. I don't know if any of them do, but if they do need volunteers and like you can volunteer your time and offer that to them, uh, please do. Um, but yeah, it's food in the greater Bangor area, Bangor, Maine. So if you're Bangor, Washington, I'm sorry, but no, Bangor, Maine. Yeah, we provide food for a bunch of people. So please check that out. Um, but yeah, Shirai's Closet. I approve. So anyways, wanted to talk about Silent Hill a little bit because we mentioned all these odd depictions of hell, and I think one of the oddest and probably one of the most unique and very interesting is the Silent Hill games. Um, it has a depiction of hell, a personal hell made of your personal deeds and like what you did. I think that's a really neat concept because it's personalized to the person. Like even the enemies in Silent Hill, the weird fucked up nurses and stuff like that, it's all depictions of like what the other person experienced and like I don't know, it's very, very cool. Now granted there's entities and stuff like Azazel and Pyramid Head and stuff like that. But the other entities and stuff that are in there are literally just like depictions of the horrors and stuff that they experienced in life or the things that they're like for instance I think it's Silent Hill 2. He lusted after somebody else other than his wife, and a lot of his stuff is very sexual in nature because a lot of them are like women and stuff, like weird bondage and like deformities and stuff like that because he lusted after women. And yeah, it's just very cool. And like even the last boss was his wife inside a um, like one of those operating things, and she like shot lightning and like barbs and stuff. Just very cool depictions of what uh, is going on there, you know. Well, that is the video for tonight. For that part, at least, I am going to switch on to something else. I'm gonna hold on. We're gonna find a something. Trying to decide. We're not gonna play Rough and Ruffy again. I did not like that game. I mean, I liked it, but like the artwork in that game was good, but I feel like the game itself was kind of, I don't want to say it, but it was kind of lame. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if you worked on that game. Uh, and I don't know of anyone that worked on that game, but like if you do know me or something like that, or you know me from something else, I'm sorry, but I didn't enjoy it too much. I think it's because I'm stuck on the dark things, and I'm normally okay. I'm just normally I'm into more uh, ow dread, I guess is the way to put it. Um, yeah. So, anyways, let's well, let's do Dark Tide, and yeah, for tonight, because I'm not going to be on long. I'm not going to be playing long, so Dark Tide. There we go. I'm not going to be on that long, so Dark Tide will do it. Um, yeah. Okay. So we will go with some dark. It took them quite a while to release that DLC. Like, it's 2 years old now. I do like it though, the Arbiter. Very cool character. Um, yeah. Reading from data disk. Or data from disk. Well, I'm gonna remake some of my abilities. Damage plus 10%, plus 10 movement speed on elites and enemy kills lasts for a second. Just checking to see if any cyber mastiff. Okay. Killing counts targets, grants allies and co-entity 5 seconds. Capacity. Melee. Okay. Your Cybermaster prioritizes ranged enemies, deals 50% damage to them. Your Cybermaster prioritizes elite and special enemies, deals 25%. All right. Constigator stance for 10 seconds, during which you have 15% movement, 80% reduction, 10% speed penalty for your actions on sprint. All right. Parroting the mark and elites, specialists, bosses for mercy sanction, killing a marked enemy replenishes 15%. Your Cybermassive gains 150% for 8 seconds attacking a marked enemy. You gain 15. Yeah. Okay. So we will do that. We're just trying to get our Cybermassive up there, you know? Okay. You know what we can do? Ooh. I was running a little wonky there.
I exist to serve.
Curios.
Function concluded.
Hold on, I'm gonna see if there's any more Castigator stuff, because they mentioned that I have new, so.
Don't be afraid to splurge. I won't tell.
Nothing.
Like I always say, if you gotta go, go with style.
Let's play it on Malice.
I have something special for you today. Wormwood agents have confirmed the location of the Carnage.
Oh, right.
Two of Wolfer's key war leaders. The twins have made something of a name for themselves since returning to Atoma, and they have a body count to match. If anyone knows where Wolfer's hiding, it's them. Take them down, but leave one breathing. I want a prisoner capable of talking. We can't risk Wolfer knowing we're coming, so this mission is strictly off the books. Get in, get one of the twins to volunteer, and do the Emperor proud.
Waiting for other players. What other players? We have one bot.
Explicator Zola, kindly explain yourself.
We have a line on the Karnak twins. Wormwood Agent 42.
Is compromised. Withdraw your team while you still can.
No! We can't miss this opportunity. The strike team is already committed.
Then may the Emperor protect them.
My peerless sense of direction paying off again.
Get back here, soldier!
Oh no. All right. Okay, so now we're in it. Oh, wow, you're a big spider.
Meat for the cauldron! Right where he said to be!
I need her alive.
Weaklings! You wouldn't last a day in the sinks!
Why does it keep going?
Escaped? Perhaps that is for the best. Explicator, extract your strike team.
I think it was hitting me.
I have faith in them.
And will you have faith in their corpses? You heard her. Wolfer knows. This is a trap.
It is an opportunity.
Leave that over! I've warned you before about your obsession with Wolfer.
It isn't obsession, it's strategy. We need to fight back.
We will, but not yet. Plans are in motion.
And how many more will die while you scratch at your status link?
You must not let it become personal. Wolfer's time will come.
Yes, it will.
Sounds like there's a doggy coming. Where's the doggy?
Kill the owl!
Get back! Exploding better! I say when this tranquilized. My turn! You are not in control yet, though. They are. Here's a box of food! Medicaid station!
Traxxas 770 bound!
Empty down!
Eyes on a Traxxas 66!
Off data confirmed. Enemy forces are converging on the strike team's location.
Then we keep moving. Stay ahead of them.
You're not listening, Zelda. I applaud initiative, of course, but the warband cannot afford willfulness. Grendel will not tolerate it.
Weapons give me a free hand.
You know how we have labored to undermine Mobian morale. Everyone is expendable, yes, even this strike team. But if they die, you down and the planted into. Wolfer will crow about it from the rooftops. You'll undo weeks of work.
Okay. Once again, this is kind of like a depiction of hell, too.
gate is blocked! What now? Just what to say, Shaker.
Kind of you. Brute.
Coming for us! Trap is dead! Focus fire elsewhere! Keep your heads down! I'm reloading! The adrenaline, the desperation. They did make such a flame. Medicaid station!
The voices!
Choose for the vigor! What a feast you will make!
I am strongest!
I felt that!
The traitor box net is ablaze. If you are to extract your team, it must be now.
I have to get to Wolfer. I have to know.
No. What? Very well. Explicator Zola, I relieve you of your responsibilities to this mission.
No, you can't. You can't.
Strike me. Do try to stay alive. I will arrange extraction.
Extraction.
The strike team requires immediate extraction. Yes, I see. Understood. Alternate extraction is not available. The only way out is through. But you want to take no chances. No fancy work. No prisoners. Kill anyone in your power, including the twins. Their death will solve something from it. Error. Hound's dead!
Sheesh.
Who wants a grenade?
level 4.
Unit engaged. Please stand still. Reserves fully trained. My purpose is enough.
All right.
Combat Sim!
Okay.
Desperate, brother. If only we could make this last.
You never changed, sister. Still playing with your food.
There's no flavour without sport.
No court!
Just don't hurt me, Psycho.
I won't forget this coin to feed.
Have a piece of dogs, guys.
Damn it! No! Oh my gosh!
For a cauldron.
Let's see how you like a bit of tox.
No!
I have you, Blade Face.
You just tangled with the guard and lost. Tidily accomplished. Your extraction is waiting. This has not exactly been textbook, but be assured, I'm very impressed by your ability. I am certain we will speak again soon.
Yeah! We did it! Holy crap. Took me down a few times, though. I don't like to admit that I was knocked down that many times. All right. Had me eat my fist. All right, let's see what the mission.
I suppose all's well that ends in something other than complete and utter failure. The fall of the Karnax has only intensified the cultist fervor. I wonder why. Understand that while I am pleased at how you acquitted yourselves, Augustine will be stepping back from operations while she renews her perspective. We may be an unusual little band, but there must be discipline even here. Hopefully I won't have call to remind you of that. The Emperor protects.
The Emperor protects. Oh, several years ago.
The Mobian 6th Infantry Regiment were ordered to Nox Alpha, a death world in the outer Mobian fringe, to quell an unknown uprising plaguing the planet. 50,000 of the Emperor's finest men and women. We had no idea what we were up against.
Captain, are these dogs ready to die?
Yes, sir.
I don't know what's worse, the enemy or that talking commissar.
I guess we'll find out soon enough. Now quiet down.
No, that would be cool. They made a commissar class.
Defeat was inevitable. We prepared to sell our lives for the Imperium. But as despair festered, a stranger walked among us.
Heretics! By the throne, you will all pay for this!
We were taught what it meant to be strong, to be blessed. And thus we became the true defenders of humanity. How will your false emperor protect you now?
Yeah, that's a pretty cool storyline. That's a pretty cool storyline. I'm glad I saw that cutscene too.
Tell me of your deeds, so that I may record them.
Complete or through. Okay.
You are my inspiration.
Probably shouldn't be.
I will do as you wish.
Chain sword.
Subroutines reinitializing for new client.
Do not stare.
Masteries. Do 5 strength is stamina depletes. All right. Let's see. Sustained fire. 14% damage on second, third, and fourth shots. Salvo. Weak spot. All right, go on the next one. Where's 14? We'll play 13 first, and then we'll. Here we go. The weakest one in this party. Oh no.
Our orders are to drive the heretics from a designated sector of Throneside. There is an old Aegis station in Enclave on Barros. We take it as our beachhead and hold for reinforcements. Interrogator Rannick entrusted me with this mission. I speak with his voice as he speaks with Grendel's. Do not forget that.
Okay. Oh, it's this one. I like this mission.
Cushy bill it is, soft in the middle.
This is but an echo of Tertium's former greatness, frittered away by callow men. I pray that our labors will restore the glories of old.
Don't give the heretics a fragging inch!
Your first objective is to reach the Skylink to Enclave on Barros. Expect resistance.
Don't hesitate, don't run, don't complain, just do the job! Ranger! Right, where's there?
That which the heretics have laid low shall be restored.
There's come seeking death! Give it to them! Beat them What's in your back? Got a good feeling about this shot.
Ranger!
Ranger incoming!
Destroy!
Oh, thank you! Get agent!
Stairs!
We gotta watch out for our friends, you know?
The heretics have raised the bridge. We must undo their work.
Gotta say! Right to that cover!
Let's see how.
We get no down! Do you hear me? You are a master of death, conscript! The beauty is no longer a problem. Reloading!
Grenade!
We can't let them pin us here!
It needs power. We must see it restored.
You trench them well! It's slowly, veteran!
Oh, we've got a I need help! That should keep them easy quiet. That's not what...
That was nasty!
The Emperor is with us. Already the mechanism hums with power.
All right.
It's inevitable anyway. All the Emperor can ask is that we die fighting. You are not.
Your flame ebbs, as is natural. Rekindle it with fervor.
Stop wasting effort! Identify our weakness!
Done with you! Return! Fight! Anyone help me? This guy is back and serves no one!
Stairs ahead!
The Ranger's dead! Right there! Heads down! Get caught! Top right Ranger! Get behind you!
Excellent technique, veteran!
It is out! Do it! Arcadia!
That Tox flavor!
Medicate station! Medicate terminal! Punch yourselves off!
Praise be to the Emperor. My soul prays.
Close and kill! Never took you for an optimist! Truth's truth! No optimism required!
Alas, though, we have no time to enter the Archivum. Perhaps another time.
Target that brother! Now!
Die. And why am I alone?
Get back! Exploding barrel! That barrel's going to explode! Mutiny! Judge! This one! I hear a hound!
Without Regent and Sora, the Galatine Blitz campaign would have ended in disaster.
Hound down! Find your own!
They're fighting over ammo.
Yeah? Oh, maybe you can pass that on to Ron.
I said, perhaps.
Medicate station! The Lecks is the Lecks! The Lecks will be heard!
All right.
You've got a face like a kick scab rat. What's going on? Not this again. Fire and cheek just a little though.
The Aegis station awaits. Is it not glorious? Claim the Aegis station for the Emperor! Activate the landing beacon!
Beacon set!
Do not falter! Do not kneel! Fight on!
There we go. Another one. Another victory. Fuck. Am I gonna? Oh, yeah, give me 20. Well, how do you like that? Dumb.
Another acceptable outcome. I'm starting to think I'm being set up as some kind of terrible joke. However, with the Aegis station back in the Mobian 21st hand, we can look at expanding our efforts in Throneside. I trust that my protege was both commanding and discreet. I guessed, of course, I see everything. Never forget that. It's good to have reliable underlings, I find. Do bear that in mind. I have high hopes for Hestia, and for you, the Emperor protects.
Hey, I gotta go get that. Gotta go get that.
Speak to me of your accomplishments. Never.
All right. That's the coolest one yet, to be honest. I can't wait till I earn this one. Look at that. All the... And as a cape. Well,
be invaluable.
There we go.
We can all try a little harder.
I will guide them, Interrogator. They will not fail you.
Okay. Well, this is going to be it for tonight. I think I've played enough. Yeah. So, next time, whatever we're doing, I'm probably going to play Bloodstained. This is the next long game I'm going to play. So, yeah, look forward to that. I do like Bloodstained a lot, and, yeah. So, look forward to that tomorrow! Bloodstained, most likely. And, yeah, we'll get us ready for the second one. It's coming out in next year. Anyways, catch you guys later. See ya! Bye-bye.